So if we go back to response in general, what are we trying to do in the response process? Well, to come down to the very basics of it, we're trying to halt or minimize the attack effects or the damage that can be caused to an organization's key critical assets and data. But at the same time, we want to maintain the operational mission of the organization itself. So if you're trying to respond to an attack, you don't want to completely take out of service your operations, your systems and network. Now, there may be times in extreme situations where organizations have decided that they need to do that, but basically we're trying to balance stopping the malicious activity and getting to full operational capability in a timely manner. We also want to ensure that if systems have been affected, that they can be cleaned and reestablished to their previous operational capacity. And that can include taking a look at the data and ensuring that the data has not been damaged in a way that is replaceable. Response can also look strategically at what do we need to do to improve our security posture and improve our ability to be ready for attacks and threats and improve the defenses that we have in place. So there's that short term, we want to halt or mitigate the attack, but there's the long term, we want to strengthen our ability to prevent these types of incidents from happening again and ensure that we're ready for other types of attacks to occur. We want to make sure also that the response activities occur in a manner that protects the data according to its level of sensitivity. And we want to be able to do an attack or malicious activity characterization. We need to understand what is going on, what is happening. And then can we express that characterization to management or to other external collaborators? And in the long run, as we look to perform response and plan response and coordinate response, we're looking at what are our courses of action? What are our response steps? What are our response strategies? What's our mitigation steps? What's our mitigation strategies? How is this all tied together to those courses of action or COAs? Now, when we look at courses of action or COAs, and we think about what is going to impact how we develop those. Well, NIST has a guide out, a computer security incident handling guide that's available. It's in revision 2 right now, and it gives you a list of criteria for trying to help you determine what is an appropriate course of action or strategy. And some of the things that it looks at, for example, are, well, what's the potential, if there's malicious activity or if there's a threat that is a potential, what is the potential damage to resources, or what type of resources might be lost or stolen? What is the need for evidence preservation? Because if you need to preserve evidence according to chain of custody rules in a forensically sound manner, that can very much change the way you perform your analysis, data collection, and response strategies. Also, what services have to be available? What can you take down? What can come down for short periods of time, longer periods of time, no time at all? So you have to understand the services that are being provided and the impact to those services. Even looking at the time and resources needed to implement the course of action. Do you have the right staff with the time available and the skill sets needed? Often organizations have to have some type of surge support. So there may be contracts to pull in others, might be contractors or other parts of the organization that can come in and help execute the response if needed. And then, what is the effectiveness of the strategy itself? Is it really going to deal with the whole incident, or is it only going to deal with part of the ongoing activity, and there are going to be other steps that are be needed too? And then what's the duration of the solution as far as the mitigation itself? Is this going to take a long time? Is this a short time? Are we going to have to stay overnight? Are we going to be working around the clock? So all those things are going to come into play as you plan your response and determine the response steps to take, or the response strategy, those courses of action. So those are all good questions to ask during an incident as you're planning that response, and determine how the answers to these questions will impact when and how you implement your response, and what additional support or additional resources you might need to perform that response. We want to take a look now at the 3 steps that we mentioned that are part of response. Now, these steps, containment, eradication, and recovery, do not always occur in every single incident. It really depends on the incident itself, the actual malicious actions that have been taken, or the potential for future threats. And it really depends on the environment that you have, the infrastructure you have, the security tools and defenses that you have in place that can be used. But we're going to talk about each one of these, and then depending on the incident, you may perform some or all of these steps. So we often hear about containment. When you look at response, there are containment actions as part of your courses of action, part of your response strategies. So what do we mean by containment? So containment really is short-term tactical action. So this is that piece where you're trying to, quote unquote, stop the bleeding. So stop an intruder's access to compromised systems, or stop the intrusion from doing any more damage, and make sure that you can limit the compromise that has occurred. So containment means literally contain the intruder or the malicious activity from spreading any further. So the primary objectives that we're talking about for containment are regain control of the system, so that we now, not the intruder, control the operation of the system, so that we can collect the evidence that we need, we can do the analysis we need, and that we can recover and return them to normal operation. And also an objective is to deny the intruder access or prevent them from continuing the malicious activity. Again, we're trying to halt the damage that's occurring. When we look at some of the common containment strategies we see out there, it of course is going to be based on the type of incident, but some of the things that we may see may involve doing some type of blocking of malicious files coming in, certain types of communications coming in or going out of your network infrastructure. And you need to determine at what level that blocking is going to be most effective, and where you might actually put an additional strain on your network capacity if you don't do any type of blocking or filtering at the right level. So things can be done at the border gateway, firewall. They might be done at mail and proxy levels, or even you might do specific URL and domain blocks to stop people from going to certain URLs or domains, to stop traffic from malicious URLs or domains from entering into your infrastructure. You may, as a containment strategy, do some isolation of any affected system on the network, so do some network isolation. You might disconnect the system from local network or from the internet or other public networks, or maybe do some type of segmentation from the rest of the network. There are other issues involved in choosing some of these containment strategies as far as what type of evidence you're able to collect, or if you want to actually watch what the intruder is doing for a longer period of time, you have to balance that with the containment strategy to kind of halt the activity and regain control of the system. And a more extreme containment strategy might be to shut down a system, a server, a service, whatever it is, but a shutdown. So that is usually frowned upon unless that's the only option, because it can then, again, disrupt the evidence that you're collecting and change things on the system. Stuff that's in memory can be lost that might show indications of what an intruder was doing. So there are a lot of issues that need to be taken into account when you're choosing your containment strategies. So when you're looking at and understanding what you're able to do in your infrastructure, you need to really have that approval from management as far as what containment activities can be taken in general, and you have to understand the mission criticality of your services and what kind of requirements they have for uptime or production status, and have to understand what impacts any of these short-term containment strategies might have on your business operations or on your network bandwidth and capacity. Also within NIST's Computer Security Incident Handling Guide, they talk about some other containment strategies as far as eliminating the attacker's route into the environment by making sure that not only have you gained control of a system, but stopping them from getting access to any nearby resources that might be targeted, similar systems that maybe haven't been compromised yet, but protecting them. Blocking transmission blocking the transmission mechanisms for malicious code between infected systems. So whatever protocols are being used or whatever mechanisms are being used to spread malicious code, can you block that? If you have a situation where one of the systems on your network has been compromised and now has been taken over by an intruder and software installed to make that system operate as on a botnet, then you may want to make sure that no activity from that system can get out of your infrastructure so that it can no longer participate, and then clean up that. But we'll talk about the cleanup part when we talk about eradication. There may be accounts that have been compromised that may be needed to be disabled because they've been used in the attack. So there's a lot of different containment strategies can do that short-term tactical containment activities. One of the considerations that we have to take is the whole concept of leaving a system online. Some organizations may want to watch what the intruder is doing to understand how they've been operating, but also to understand what other parts of the operations of the organization may have been compromised, where else they may be in the systems. And so, again, there may be certain circumstances where containment strategies are not put in place because you don't want to tip off the intruder that you know what they're doing and that you want to instead watch what they're doing. When this decision is made, it has to be made with the right authority and approval, and this again should be something that is talked about ahead of time. In what situation would you leave a system online? You don't want to be tracking down management and legal during an incident to say, can we do this or not? You should know what the process is. You should have the right people that need to be involved in the decision, have them available and knowing that they need to be involved in that decision. And this also is something that comes from NIST provides some cautions that not containing the malicious activity could actually cause more malicious activity to occur. And so that's something that you have to take in mind. If you do leave a compromised system running, more damage may be done on your systems. Other systems could be compromised, data could be released to unauthorized organizations or people. So you really have to think about what can be done. There was one situation where an organization was trying to understand and track what an intruder was doing. And by leaving the system open, they were actually able to delete data that did not have a backup and was not recoverable. So you really have to take into account, if you're leaving that system online, leaving that system open, what may be the consequences of that action. Other caveats for containment: when you put some of these containment strategies in place, you may destroy information required to really understand what happened with an intrusion. You may accidentally or purposefully, because of the actions taken, change data. And this ties into when we were talking about shutting down a system and the information and evidence that might be lost. So ensure that you have the necessary data that you need for analysis and that's been collected before making any system changes. We also see that as organizations look to do more detailed analysis on a system, they will make images of the system if possible, or the affected parts of the system, and do analysis on a copy of that and keep the original data intact in case they need to refer back to it. The next step that we want to talk about is eradication. So how is eradication different than containment? So eradication really means removal or eliminate. So it's the steps required to eliminate the cause of an intrusion. Now the slide says the root cause of an intrusion. That may not completely always be the case. The root cause may end up being something different, but to at least eliminate some of the causes of the malicious activity or the threats and risks. So all threats and risks you would like to have removed from systems and networks before returning them to service. So you really need to think about and understand what has happened to ensure that you have taken the necessary precautions and you have ensured that any malicious activity, malicious files have been removed from the systems and won't be easily reinstalled. Because if you don't do complete eradication of some of the malicious components, then the system, as I said, could easily be compromised again or breached again. When we look at the primary objectives of eradication, we're really looking to ensure that the removal of the cause or causes of the malicious activity and any associated files, and ensure that any access methods that have been used by the intruder have also been eliminated. So long term, that can actually mean that vulnerabilities that were exploited by the intruder to allow them to gain access to a system in an unauthorized fashion are patched or remediated in some way. If they were able to get to equipment because the equipment wasn't physically secured, or there were not restrictions on access to areas, that may be something that also has to be removed. Also, it could be human error. So if people are performing actions that put the systems in danger, ensuring through training or through disciplinary actions that type of action is removed or eradicated so they don't repeat those types of actions. Now, eradication usually comes after containment. But if containment is part of your response strategy, containment doesn't always have to be. But executing eradication is really kind of an interactive iterative steps. So you may do some information, do some eradication steps and find out more information and find out that there's more containment activities or eradication activities that you have to perform. So it's not always clear at the beginning until you do your various types of analysis what actually caused the damage, how an intruder was able to get in, and especially what an intruder has been able to modify. And we want to understand to the fullest effect possible what was done so before we rebuild and reconnect any type of affected system, so that we don't leave a compromised system, or we don't leave a system vulnerable to further damage and attack. So some of the common eradication steps that we've seen, again, specifying that eradication, the actions taken themselves will depend on the type of incident it is. But just some of the common eradication steps would be, if there's been malware installed, to remove that malware. If there has been files that have been replaced with possibly Trojan versions, or that have been compromised in some way or modified in some way, restoring the integrity of those files. If a system is in an unknown state and has now had malicious code installed on it, then rebuilding that system, ensuring that from trusted media, ensuring that it's returned to a state that does not have that malware, and it's not easy for the intruder to reinstall that malware, which can be tricky sometimes with some of the new techniques that are out there. It can also be, even an eradication step can be that as malware is maybe coming into your infrastructure through email, maybe you have some more preventative or proactive eradication strategies where there are systems that look for that malware and then either quarantine it someplace so it does not come to the end user, or just strip it off and remove it, and don't allow that type of malicious files to come into the end user systems or email. Another eradication strategy, as we mentioned on the previous slide, is to remediate or mitigate any vulnerabilities. So again, that can be done by patching or workarounds where needed. If you have systems that can't be easily patched, if workarounds are difficult to implement, sometimes you might be able to segment the affected host to protect it from the intruder having access to be able to make any more changes to the system. And also, modifying access controls can be seen as eradication strategies too, updating what users and network access controls exist, removing any access mechanisms that were used by the intruder, and ensuring that the baselines of your operating system configurations and application configurations are updated to more secure configurations where possible.